The clock on the wall read 2:34 a.m. when Dante Moretti heard the elevator chime from 3 floors below. He stood motionless in the shadows of his study, a tumbler of bourbon cooling in his grip, eyes fixed on the hallway security monitor like a man watching his own execution. She was late. Again. For the 3rd time this week, Anabel Cross had slipped out after her shift ended, returning to his estate at an hour that made his blood simmer with questions he had no right to ask. She worked for him, cleaned his home, prepared his meals, lived in the staff quarters on the East Wing. That should have been the end of it. But Dante Moretti had never been good at boundaries when it came to the things he wanted. And what he wanted, more than his next breath, was to know where she had been, who she had seen, why her smile seemed brighter lately, as if someone else had earned what he craved. Hey, gorgeous. So your billionaire boss has been losing sleep over where you go at night, and tonight he's standing in the dark at 2:34 a.m. waiting to confront you. Red flag or hottest jealousy you've ever seen. Because when Dante whispered tesoro while asking who made her smile, Anabel realized this man has been obsessed for months. Is falling for your jealous, possessive employer brave or completely insane? Let me know in the comment section and tell us where you are watching from, because I want to connect with you. Hit subscribe because this Italian doesn't share. Now, back to the chaos. The elevator doors slid open. Anabel stepped into the marble foyer, heels dangling from one hand, coat half-buttoned against the October chill. Her dark curls were windswept, cheeks flushed pink, lips curved in a secretive smile that sent a dangerous heat crawling up his spine. She didn't see him at first. She never did. Dante had perfected the art of watching her without being seen, a skill he despised himself for using, but couldn't seem to stop. Tonight, though, he stepped into the light. Is this when you come home now? Anabel gasped, spinning toward his voice. Her eyes went wide, that smile vanishing like smoke. Mr. Moretti, I didn't know you were still awake. Clearly. He moved closer, each step deliberate, controlled. It's nearly 3 in the morning. My shift ended at 10, she said quickly, defensively. What I do after that is my own time. Under my roof, everything is my concern. Her chin lifted, defiance sparking in those amber eyes that haunted his sleep. I don't live in a prison. No, he agreed, voice dropping to something softer, more dangerous. You live in my home, where I expect you safe, where I worry when you're not. That caught her off guard. He saw it in the way her breath hitched, the way her fingers tightened on her shoes. You worry about me. Dante had already said too much. He turned away, setting his glass down with more force than necessary. I worry about all my staff. That's not what you said, he didn't answer. Couldn't, because if he turned around, if he looked at her, standing there in the soft glow of his foyer, with questions in her eyes, and that damnable flush still warming her cheeks, he would cross a line he'd been fighting for 6 months. 6 months since she'd walked into his life with a resume and a desperate need for work. 6 months since he'd felt anything other than cold ambition and colder rage. 6 months of pretending he didn't notice the sway of her hips when she moved through his home, the sound of her laughter echoing from the kitchen, the warmth she brought to rooms that had been lifeless for years. Good night, Mr. Moretti, she said quietly, and he heard her footsteps retreating down the hall. He waited until her door clicked shut before he exhaled, pressing his palms flat against the cool marble counter. His reflection stared back at him from the darkened window, a man approaching 40 with too much blood on his hands and too much hunger in his chest for a woman who deserved better than what he could offer. But knowing that didn't stop him from pulling up the security footage and rewinding to the moment she left the estate earlier that evening, searching for clues he had no business wanting. The next morning, Anabel moved through the kitchen with practiced efficiency, preparing breakfast as sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. She'd barely slept, her mind replaying the way Dante had looked at her in the dark, the rawness in his voice when he said he worried. She shouldn't care. He was her employer, a dangerous man who ran half of New York's underworld from this very penthouse. She'd known who he was when she accepted the position, known the risks, the rumors, the violence that followed his name like a shadow. But she'd been desperate. 3 months behind on rent, student loans crushing her, medical bills from her mother's illness piling up faster than she could breathe. When the agency called with a live-in position paying 3 times her previous salary, she hadn't asked questions. Now, 6 months later, she was trapped in something far more dangerous than his reputation. She was falling for him. Coffee smells different today. Anabel jumped, spinning to find Dante leaning against the doorframe, freshly showered, wearing a black suit that fit him like sin. His dark hair was still damp, olive skin glowing in the morning light, gray eyes tracking her every movement, with an intensity that made her pulse race. "I bought a new blend," she managed, turning back to the espresso machine. "Thought you might like a change." "I don't like change." "Most people don't." She poured his coffee into the specific cup he preferred, added exactly the amount of sugar he never admitted to wanting, and set it on the counter between them. "But sometimes it's good for you." He picked up the cup, fingers brushing hers for half a second too long. "And sometimes it's dangerous." Their eyes met, held. Something electric crackled in the space between them, something that had been building for months and was becoming impossible to ignore. The moment shattered when Marco, Dante's second-in-command, walked in carrying a tablet. "Boss, we need to talk about the shipment." Dante's mask slid back into place instantly. "My office. 5 minutes." Marco nodded, but not before his gaze slid to Anabel, with an appreciation that made Dante's jaw tighten visibly. "Morning, Anabel. You look lovely today." She smiled politely. "Good morning, Marco." "That new dress," he continued, leaning against the counter with easy confidence. "The color suits you." "Thank you. Marco." Dante's voice cut through the air like a blade. "My office." "Now." Marco's grin widened, but he pushed off the counter and left without another word. The moment the door closed, Dante turned back to Anabel, something dark and possessive burning in his eyes. "Be careful with him," he said quietly. "He was just being friendly. He was being inappropriate. He complimented my dress. He was looking at you like you were his." Dante stepped closer, voice dropping to gravel. "You're not." Anabel's breath caught. "I'm not yours either." "No," he agreed. So close now she could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. "But I'm the one who notices when you leave at midnight and come home at 3. I'm the one who worries when you're gone. And I'm the one who wants to know who the hell you're seeing." "That's none of your business." "Then make it my business." They stared at each other, the air between them crackling with tension so thick Anabel felt dizzy. Then Dante stepped back, running a hand through his hair in rare frustration. "Forget I said that." "Why?" "Because you work for me, because I'm twice the danger you think I am, because you deserve better than a man who breaks things for a living." Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving her alone in the kitchen with a racing heart and the lingering scent of his cologne. Later that afternoon, Anabel received a text from her friend Jessica. "Still on for tonight? Ryan's excited to meet you." She'd forgotten about the double date. Jessica had been setting it up for weeks, insisting Anabel needed to get out more, meet new people, stop hiding in the mansion like some modern-day Cinderella. "I'll be there," she typed back, ignoring the twist of guilt in her stomach. That evening, she dressed carefully in jeans and a soft sweater, pulling her curls into a loose ponytail. She was just reaching for her coat when Dante appeared in the hallway, stopping short when he saw her. Going somewhere? Meeting friends for dinner. His expression shuddered. What friends? People I knew before I worked here. She tried to move past him, but he shifted, blocking her path without touching her. I won't be late. How late? I don't know. Does it matter? Yes, he said simply, and the honesty in that single word nearly broke her resolve. Mr. Moretti? Dante! His hand came up, hovering near her face before dropping. When it's just us, call me Dante. This isn't appropriate. I know. He stepped aside finally, jaw tight. Be safe. She left before she could change her mind, but she felt his gaze on her all the way to the elevator. The restaurant was loud, crowded, exactly the kind of place designed to help people forget their problems. Anabel sat across from Ryan, a financial analyst with kind eyes and safe conversation, and tried to focus on his words instead of the phantom weight of Dante's stare. Ryan was nice, normal, exactly what she should want. But when he reached across the table to touch her hand, all she could think about was the way Dante's fingers had brushed hers that morning, the heat in his voice when he asked who she was seeing, the possession barely restrained in every word. You seem distracted, Ryan said gently. Everything okay? I'm sorry, it's just work. The live-in position, right? Jessica mentioned your boss is pretty. Demanding. Possessive. Dangerous. Beautiful in ways that make me forget how to breathe. He's complicated, she settled on. Sounds intense. You ever think about finding something else? The truth was, she thought about it constantly. Thought about running before she fell any deeper, before the way Dante looked at her became the only thing that mattered. But she needed the money. Needed the stability. Needed, her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Where are you? She knew who it was instantly. Her fingers trembled as she typed back. Out with friends, like I said. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, come home. It's not even 9. Come home, Anabel. Ryan was watching her curiously. Everything all right? Her phone rang. Dante's name flashed on the screen. She stared at it, heart racing, knowing she should ignore it, knowing she wouldn't. Excuse me for a moment. She stepped outside, answering on the 4th ring. What is it? Who are you with? No preamble, no pretense. Friends. Male or female? That's inappropriate to ask. Anabel. Her name was a command, a plea, a warning all at once. Answer me. Both, she admitted, hating how her voice shook. It's a double date. Jessica set it up. Silence. Suffocating silence. Dante? A date. His voice had gone cold. Deadly. You're on a date. You have no right to be angry about this. No right? He laughed, sharp and humorless. You're right. I have no right to care when you smile at other men. No right to lose sleep wondering where you are. No right to want to burn down every restaurant in this city until I find you. Her breath caught. You're being irrational. I'm being honest. For the first time in 6 months, I'm being completely honest with you. Another pause. Is he touching you? What? The man you're with. Is he touching you? Dante, answer me. He held my hand. That's all. She heard something crash on his end. The sound of violence, barely. Contained. Come home. No. Anabel, you don't get to do this. You don't get to act like you own me when you won't even admit what this is between us. I work for you. That's all? That's what you keep saying. That's a lie, and we both know it. Then what is it? She demanded, voice rising. What do you want from me? Everything. The word came out raw, broken. I want everything, and it's destroying me because I can't have it. I can't have you. Tears burned her eyes. Why not? Because men like me don't deserve women like you. Because I'll ruin you. Because the moment anyone knows what you mean to me, you become a target for every enemy I've made. Because, his voice cracked, because I'm already in too deep, and if I pull you down with me, I'll never forgive myself. That should be my choice. You don't know what you're choosing. Then tell me. She was crying now, not caring who saw. Stop hiding behind excuses and tell me the truth. For a long moment, only his breathing filled the line, harsh and uneven. Then, quietly, the truth is I think about you every second of every day. The truth is I've rewritten my entire security protocol just so I can track where you are. The truth is I fired a guard last week for looking at you too long. The truth is I'm obsessed with you, Anabel. Dangerously, irrevocably. And it's only getting worse. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. So yes, he continued, voice breaking. I want you to come home. But not because I'm ordering you, because I'm begging you. Because the thought of you with him is killing me. And I don't know how much more I can take before I do something we'll both regret. Behind her, the restaurant door opened. Ryan stepped out, concern on his face. Anabel, you okay? On the phone, Dante went silent. Then, with forced calm, who is that? My date? Put him on the phone. Absolutely not. Anabel. She hung up. 30 minutes later, Anabel said goodbye to Ryan with an apology and a promise to reschedule that they both knew she wouldn't keep. Jessica gave her a knowing look but didn't push, just hugged her and whispered, "Go get him." The drive back to the estate took 20 minutes. Every one of them felt like an eternity. When the elevator doors opened, Dante was waiting in the exact spot he'd stood the night before, still wearing his suit, looking like he'd aged years in the past hour. He straightened when he saw her, hands clenched at his sides, expression carefully blank. "You came back," he said, as if he'd expected her not to. "You asked me to. I've asked you for things before. You've never listened." She set down her purse, removed her coat, trying to steady her shaking hands. "Maybe I'm tired of pretending this isn't happening." He moved closer, slowly, like she might bolt. "What is this? Tell me what you think this is." "I think you're in love with me." The words came out stronger than she felt. "I think you have been for a while, and it terrifies you. I think you watch me when you think I'm not looking. I think you've been jealous for months. And I think..." Her voice broke. "I think I feel the same way, and it's the most dangerous thing I've ever admitted." Dante stopped breathing. Just stopped, like her words had physically struck him. Then he was moving, crossing the distance between them in 3 strides, his hands coming up to frame her face, with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about him. "Say it again," he whispered, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. "Say you feel the same way." "I'm falling for you, Dante. I have been since the first week, maybe longer. And it's terrifying because you're right. This is dangerous and complicated and probably a mistake. But I can't stop. I've tried. God, I've tried so hard to stop, and I can't." His forehead dropped to hers, his breathing ragged. "You're going to ruin me." "I thought you said you'd ruin me." "We'll ruin each other." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, his own burning with something fierce and tender. "And I don't care anymore. I don't care about the danger or the complications or anything except this, except you." "Dante." He kissed her. Finally. Desperately. With 6 months of restraint shattering between them. His mouth was hot and demanding and reverent all at once, one hand tangled in her hair, the other splayed across her lower back, pulling her flush against him. Anabel gasped into the kiss, her hands fisting in his jacket, and he swallowed the sound, deepening the kiss until she forgot where she ended and he began. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his lips to her forehead, her temple, her cheek, as if memorizing the feel of her skin. "Stay with me tonight. I live here. You know what I mean." His voice was raw, vulnerable in a way that made her chest ache. "Stay with me, in my room, in my bed. Let me hold you. Let me prove this is real. She should say no. Should establish boundaries. Should protect what was left of her common sense. Instead, she took his hand. Show me. He led her through the penthouse to a wing she'd never entered, past security doors that opened with his fingerprint, into a bedroom that was somehow both opulent and stark. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, but it was the bed that drew her attention. Massive, covered in dark sheets that looked sinfully soft. Dante watched her take it in, his grip on her hand tightening. If you want to leave. I don't. She turned to face him, reaching up to loosen his tie. I want this. I want you. His control snapped. He kissed her again, harder this time, walking her backward until her knees hit the bed. They fell together, a tangle of limbs and desperate touches, months of tension finally finding release. He worshipped her with his hands, his mouth, his whispered confessions against her skin, learning every curve, every sound she made, every place that made her gasp his name. The city lights painted them in gold and shadow as they came together, slow and intense and world-altering. Anabel felt something shift inside her, some final wall crumbling as Dante held her like she was precious, breakable, essential. When it was over, he gathered her against his chest, pressing kisses to her hair, her shoulder, anywhere he could reach. Don't leave, he whispered into the darkness. When you wake up tomorrow, don't leave. I won't, she promised. But when dawn broke and Anabel woke to an empty bed, panic seized her chest. The sheets beside her were cold. Dante was gone. She dressed quickly in last night's clothes, heart racing, telling herself it meant nothing. He probably had business, probably had calls to make. Probably. The rational excuses died when she found a note on his pillow. Had to handle something. Stay in the room, please. The please should have reassured her. Instead, it felt like a barrier, like he was already pulling away, regretting what happened, remembering all the reasons they shouldn't have crossed that line. Anabel grabbed her things and fled to her own room, showering quickly and changing into her work clothes with mechanical precision. By the time she reached the kitchen, she'd rebuilt her walls, convinced herself it had been a mistake, prepared for the inevitable conversation where Dante would tell her last night couldn't happen again. She found Marco instead, leaning against the counter with a knowing smirk. Morning. Rough night? What? Boss has been in a mood since 6 a.m., snapping at everyone, threw his phone across the room when he realized you weren't where he left you. Marco's grin widened. So yeah, rough night. Heat flooded her face. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. He pushed off the counter, sobering slightly. Look, I like you, Anabel. You're good for him. But you should know what you're getting into. Dante's enemies would love to find a weakness. And you, he gestured at her. You're one hell of a weakness. Is that a threat? It's a warning from someone who cares what happens to both of you. Before she could respond, the elevator chimed. Dante stepped out, still in yesterday's suit, looking exhausted and furious. His gaze swept the room, landing on her with relief so profound it made her knees weak. You left, he said, voice hoarse. You left first. I had an emergency. I left a note. Asking me to stay in your room like a kept woman. His jaw tightened. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Mr. Moretti? The formal address hit him like a slap. Marco cleared his throat. I'm gonna be literally anywhere else. He disappeared down the hall, leaving them alone in thick silence. Dante crossed to her, slowly, carefully, like she might bolt. Don't do this. Don't retreat from me now. You're the one who retreated. You left me alone to wake up in your bed. No explanation. Just an order to stay put. To keep you safe. His composure cracked. I got a call at 5 a.m. that someone had been asking about you. My enemies, Anabel. They're watching. They saw you with me, and now they're asking questions. And I will not lose you because of my mistakes." The confession stole her breath. "Who's asking?" "The Bratva. They've been trying to undermine my operations for months. Last night, after I—" He ran a hand through his hair, struggling. "After we were together, I got careless. Let my guard down. And someone photographed you leaving the restaurant early, tracked you back here. Now they know you matter to me. So you're pushing me away." "No." He reached for her hands, gripping them tight. "I'm pulling you closer. I'm locking this place down. I'm tripling security. I'm doing everything in my power to keep you safe while I eliminate this threat. But I need you to trust me. I need you to not run every time I have to step away to protect what's ours." Ours. That single word reverberated through her chest. "What are we, Dante?" she asked, quietly. "What is this?" He cupped her face, thumbs stroking her cheeks with devastating tenderness. "You're mine. I'm yours. That's what we are. No more pretending. No more hiding. I'm done fighting this. Your enemies will regret ever looking at you. I promise you that." His voice went cold, lethal. "Anyone who tries to hurt you won't live to regret it." She should be terrified, should run from the violence in his promise. Instead, she kissed him. The following week passed in a haze of stolen moments and tightening security. Dante assigned 2 guards to shadow Anabel whenever she left the estate, upgraded every lock and camera, and moved her belongings into his wing without asking permission. She should have protested. Instead, she found herself falling asleep in his arms every night, waking to his kisses every morning, learning the man behind the monster everyone feared. He was gentle with her in ways that contradicted his reputation. Patient, attentive. He learned she liked her coffee with too much cream, that she hummed while cooking, that thunderstorms made her anxious. In return, she discovered he had nightmares he wouldn't discuss, scars he wouldn't explain, and a capacity for tenderness that nearly broke her heart. But the threat lingered like smoke. One evening, Marco burst into Dante's office, where Anabel sat curled in a chair reading while Dante worked. "We have a problem." Dante's head snapped up, immediately alert. "What kind?" "The kind that involves Anabel's friend Jessica." Marco's expression was grim. "She was approached yesterday, offered money for information about Anabel's schedule, her relationship with you, weak points in estate security." Anabel's book fell from her hands. "Jessica wouldn't." "She didn't," Marco assured quickly. "She told them to go to hell and called me immediately. But it confirms they're actively hunting for leverage." Dante was already moving, pulling out his phone, barking orders in rapid Italian. Anabel caught. Fragments. Protection detail, safe house, immediate extraction. When he finished, his gaze found hers, dark with barely controlled rage. "Pack a bag," he said quietly. "We're leaving." "Leaving where?" "My property upstate. Remote. Secure. Until I handle this threat, you're not staying in the city. You can't just uproot my entire life. Watch me." He crossed to her, gripping her shoulders. "They threatened your friend to get to you. That means they're escalating. I will not wait for them to make a move. I will not risk you." "What about you? You're staying to fight them." "That's different." "How?" His hands tightened fractionally. "Because if something happens to me, I've made arrangements. You'll be taken care of, protected, safe. But if something happens to you," his voice fractured, "if they take you from me, there won't be enough left of me to bury." Tears burned her throat. "Dante, please." He pulled her against his chest, arms wrapping around her with desperate strength. "Please don't fight me on this. Let me keep you safe. It's the only thing I know how to do." She surrendered, nodding against his shoulder, feeling his exhale of relief. The upstate property was less a house and more a fortress disguised as a luxury cabin, surrounded by forest, equipped with state-of-the-art security, staffed with guards Dante trusted with his life. Anabel spent 3 days there, pacing, worrying, checking her phone obsessively for updates. Dante called twice daily, his voice strained but controlled, assuring her everything was progressing. He never gave details, never admitted how dangerous it was. But she heard it in the exhaustion bleeding through his words, the edge of violence barely restrained. On the 4th night, her phone rang at 2 a.m. She answered before the first ring finished. "Dante? It's done." His voice was hollow, empty. "The threat's eliminated. You're safe. Are you hurt?" Silence. "Dante, are you hurt?" Nothing that won't heal, which meant yes. "I'll be there by morning. I'm coming back to the city. No, I'm coming to you. I need—" He broke off, composing himself. "I need to see you. Need to know you're real and safe and mine. Can you wait for me?" "Always," she whispered. He arrived as dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, looking like hell. His suit was rumpled, shirt stained with what she desperately hoped wasn't blood, a fresh bruise blooming along his jaw. But his eyes were alive in ways she'd never seen, burning with something fierce and uncontained. Anabel ran to him. He caught her, lifting her off her feet, burying his face in her neck as his entire body shuddered. "You're safe. You're here. You're mine." "I'm here," she confirmed, holding him tight. "I'm okay. We're okay." He carried her inside, past the guards who discreetly vanished, straight to the master bedroom. He set her down gently, then just looked at her, drinking her in like a man seeing sunlight after years of darkness. "What happened?" she asked softly. "I made an example." His voice was flat, factual. "The Bratva won't threaten what's mine again. No one will. I made sure of it." She should ask for details, should demand to know what making an example meant. But looking at him, at the man who'd gone to war for her, who'd burned down threats to keep her safe, who stood before her damaged and dangerous and devoted, she found she didn't care about the darkness he'd waded through, only that he'd come back to her. "You need sleep," she said, reaching for his jacket. He caught her hands. "I need you." The rawness in those 3 words undid her. She nodded, and he kissed her with bruising intensity, pouring months of fear and violence and desperate love into the contact. They tumbled into bed together, urgent and emotional, reaffirming life in the aftermath of death. He was rougher than before, less controlled, marking her skin with his mouth, his hands, his hoarse confessions of how terrified he'd been, how the only thing that kept him sane was knowing she waited for him. Afterward, as they lay tangled together, he pressed his lips to her forehead. "Marry me." Anabel's breath caught. "What?" "Marry me," he repeated, propping himself on one elbow to meet her eyes. "I don't have a ring yet. I'll get you whatever you want. Diamonds, platinum, something obscenely expensive. But I can't wait anymore. I can't pretend this is temporary or casual or anything less than forever. Marry me, Anabel. Let me make you my wife. Let me protect you legally, completely, permanently. Dante, we've only been together a few weeks. I've been yours since the moment you walked into my house." He cupped her face, thumb brushing her lips. The rest was just time passing until we both admitted it. I don't need more time. I need you. As my partner. My equal. My wife. Say yes. She should be rational. Should consider the implications, the danger, the insanity of marrying a mafia boss after such a short time. Yes, she breathed instead, and his smile was blinding. They married quietly 3 weeks later in a private ceremony at the estate, just Marco and Jessica as witnesses. Anabel wore a simple white dress that Dante couldn't stop staring at. his hands shaking when he slid the ring onto her finger. A platinum band with a diamond so large it should have been gaudy, but somehow wasn't. "You're mine now," he whispered during their first dance, holding her close. "Legally. Completely. Forever." "I was already yours," she reminded him. "Now the world knows it." He kissed her temple. "Now anyone who even thinks about hurting you knows they'll have to go through me first. And I promise you, Tesoro, no one will ever get through me." 6 months later, Anabel stood in the bathroom of their penthouse, staring at the positive pregnancy test with trembling hands. They'd talked about children, wanted them eventually, but she hadn't expected eventually to arrive so soon. She found Dante in his study, reviewing contracts, and he looked up immediately when she entered, always attuned to her presence. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." She crossed to him, setting the test on his desk. "Everything's complicated." He stared at it for 3 full seconds before his gaze snapped to hers, something raw and overwhelming flooding his expression. "You're pregnant." "Yes." He stood slowly, rounding the desk, pulling her into his arms with a gentleness that made her eyes sting. "How do you feel?" "Terrified. Happy. Overwhelmed. All of it." He pulled back just enough to frame her face, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "I'm going to be a father." "You're going to be a father," she confirmed, and his laugh was shaky, disbelieving, beautiful. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. "Don't deserve you, or this gift, or any of it. But I'm selfish enough to keep it anyway, to protect it with everything I have, to love you both so completely the world burns before anyone touches what's mine." "I know," she said, because she did. She'd seen his capacity for protection, for possession, for love that bordered on obsession, and somehow, impossibly, it made her feel safer than anything else ever could. The pregnancy transformed him. Dante, already protective, became almost impossible. He hired a full medical staff, insisted on weekly checkups, banned anything that could remotely stress her. Anabel found it suffocating for approximately 3 days before realizing it was his way of showing love, the only way he knew how. "You're hovering," she said one evening, as he watched her navigate the stairs like she might shatter. "You're carrying my child," he countered. "I'll hover until they're safely in my arms. Then I'll hover over both of you. That's not sustainable. Watch me." She rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress her smile. This was who he was, intense, possessive, overwhelming in his devotion. And she loved him for it. 8 months later, on a snowy December evening, Anabel went into labor. Dante transformed from composed mafia boss to panicked father-to-be in seconds, shouting orders, demanding the medical team work faster, holding Anabel's hand with white-knuckled intensity as she brought their daughter into the world. When the doctor placed the tiny, wailing bundle in his arms, Dante froze, just completely stopped moving, staring down at the baby with an expression of such profound awe that Anabel's exhausted heart swelled. "She's perfect," he whispered, voice breaking. He couldn't finish, tears streaming down his face as he carefully, reverently brought their daughter to Anabel. "Look what we made, Tesoro. Look at her!" Anabel gazed at their baby, dark hair, olive skin already beautiful, and felt something settle into place. This was her family, her life, everything she'd never known she needed. "What should we name her?" Dante asked, unable to look away from his daughter. "Isabella," Anabel suggested, "after your mother." His breath caught, and he pressed a fierce kiss to Anabel's forehead. "Isabella Moretti. Perfect." Later, after the medical team left and Anabel dozed with Isabella in her arms, Dante stood at the window overlooking the city. Marco joined him quietly. "Never thought I'd see you like this," Marco said. Happy. Neither did I. Dante's gaze returned to his wife and daughter, something soft and dangerous in his expression. She saved me. Gave me everything I never thought I deserved. You going to tell her about the threat from the Colombians? Already handled. They won't be a problem. His voice went cold. No one will ever threaten my family again. I've made certain of it. Marco nodded, unsurprised. You're a good father, Dante. Better than yours ever was. I have to be. He glanced at Isabella, his entire world contained in that tiny sleeping form. She deserves better than what I came from. What I am. So I'll be better. For her. For Anabel. For us. 2 years later, Anabel stood in the kitchen of their renovated estate. Now less fortress, more home. Watching Dante chase a toddling Isabella through the living room. Her daughter's giggles filled the air, bright and pure, and Dante's laughter followed, deep and unguarded in ways he never was with anyone else. Got you, he declared, scooping Isabella into his arms and spinning her until she squealed. Who's Papa's princess? Me, Isabella shouted, throwing her arms around his neck. Anabel's hand drifted to her stomach, where their second child grew, another daughter, who would have her father wrapped around her tiny finger before she took her first breath. She hadn't told him yet, wanted to savor the secret a little longer. But Dante, perceptive as always, caught her watching. His gaze dropped to her hand, then snapped back to her face, understanding dawning. He set Isabella down gently, telling her to play with her toys, then crossed to Anabel with purposeful strides. Again? Asked quietly, hand covering hers on her stomach. Again, she confirmed. His smile was brilliant, overwhelming, and he kissed her with the same desperate devotion he'd shown since that first night she admitted she was falling for him. You're going to give me a dozen children at this rate. Absolutely not. 6? We'll discuss it after this one. He laughed against her mouth, then sobered, pulling back to meet her eyes with that intensity that still made her weak. I love you. More than power, more than empire, more than my own life. You know that, right? I know, she said, because she did. She'd seen him prove it in 1,000 ways. In the enemies eliminated before they could threaten her. In the empire rebuilt to provide security for their children. In the darkness he walked through so she could live in light. Good. He kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. Because you're stuck with me, Tesoro, forever. No escape. Who said I wanted to escape? His grin was pure sin. No one. That's why you're perfect for me. Isabella toddled over, demanding attention, and Dante lifted both her and Anabel into his arms, careful of her stomach, holding his entire world with a gentleness that contradicted everything the rest of the city knew about him. Later that night, after Isabella was asleep and they lay tangled together in bed, Anabel traced the scars on Dante's chest, reminders of battles fought, dangers survived, violence embraced to keep them safe. Do you regret it? She asked softly. Letting me in? Risking everything? He caught her hand, pressing it over his heart. I regret nothing. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. You and Isabella and this little one, he touched her stomach. You're my redemption, my reason, my everything. Even though I came home late that night, he laughed, the sound rich and warm. Especially because of that. If you hadn't been late, I might have kept pretending I didn't need you, might have let you slip away. Instead, I got jealous and possessive and completely lost control. Best loss of control ever. Agreed. He kissed her slow and deep, then pulled back with mock seriousness. But don't make a habit of coming home late. My jealousy hasn't improved with time. Noted. I mean it, Anabel. Some things haven't changed. I'm still possessive, still overprotective, Still completely obsessed with you?" She smiled against his chest. "Good. I'd be disappointed if you'd softened. Never." His arms tightened around her. "You're mine. I'm yours. That's the only truth that matters." 5 years after that first late-night confrontation, Anabel stood on the balcony of their estate, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. Isabella and her younger sister Sophia played in the garden below, supervised by guards who'd become extended family, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Dante joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" "That night," she admitted. "When you asked if that's when I come home now. I was insufferable. You were jealous. I was terrified," he corrected. "Terrified of what I felt. Terrified of what it meant. Terrified of losing you before I ever really had you." She turned in his arms, meeting his eyes, still gray, still intense, still capable of making her forget her own name. "You never had to be terrified. I was already yours." "I know that now." He touched her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "But I didn't then. All I knew was you walked into my life and everything changed. The house felt warmer. The silence felt less oppressive. I started coming home earlier just to see you. Started finding excuses to be in whatever room you occupied. Started living instead of just surviving." "Dante, let me finish." He smiled, soft and genuine. "You saved me, Tesoro, from a life that was all violence and no purpose. From becoming the monster everyone expected. You gave me love and family and reasons to be better, and I spent every day trying to be worthy of that gift." Tears streamed down her face. "You are worthy. You always were." "Then I'm the luckiest man alive." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "Because somehow, impossibly, you chose me. You stayed when you should have run. You loved me when I gave you every reason not to. And you gave me a life I never dreamed I deserved." "We gave each other that," she corrected. "You saved me too, remember? From debt and loneliness and a life that felt like drowning." "Then we saved each other?" He pulled her closer, swaying slightly to music only they could hear. "And we're going to keep saving each other, every day, for the rest of our lives." Below, their daughters called for them, wanting their parents to join their game. Dante laughed, releasing Anabel to jog down the steps, scooping both girls into his arms as they shrieked with delight. He glanced back at Anabel, standing on the balcony, and the love in his eyes was so profound, it stole her breath. This was her life now. This beautiful, complicated, dangerous, perfect life, with a man who'd walk through fire for her, who'd burn down the world to keep her safe, who loved her with an intensity that should terrify her, but instead made her feel invincible. She descended the stairs, joining her family in the garden as the sun set behind them, painting their world in gold. Dante reached for her hand, and she took it, their fingers intertwining as naturally as breathing. "I love you," he said, just loud enough for her to hear. "I love you too," she replied. "Always." "Always," he agreed, and kissed her as their daughters danced around them. The guards smiled from their posts, and somewhere in the city Dante had conquered and protected and transformed into something beautiful. Life went on. But here, in this moment, in this garden with this family, nothing else mattered. Just them. Just love. Just the life they'd built from jealousy and danger and a single late-night confrontation that changed everything. It was enough. It was everything. It was theirs. If you made it to the end, you're my kind of person. 2 things before you go. 1. Smash that like button if this story gave you butterflies. 2. Subscribe because next week's story is even more intense. You do not want to miss it. Drop your favorite moment in the comments. I read every one. See you in the next story, gorgeous.